Hello fellows, today I want to talk about the secret usage of AI coding in companies. A developer was claiming again that, hey, I see my colleagues using agent, I'm using it myself in an environment where I'm actually not allowed to do that. So what is the problem here? Of course, it is probably against your contract, which you're doing right now, but that is not the topic of today. So that is, of course, something you shouldn't do. What I want to aim at is actually the company level. So the decision makers in a company to rethink if it's actually a good idea to push the AI agent topic away. Because I personally don't believe that we should do that. The reason for that is people use AI anyway. They use it in side projects and they really want to use it on production level as well. So what we see is that people having their own hidden context files, they use basically git exclude to actually hide them from the others. They install their agents somehow that they can actually work in that code base and proceed from that point on. Why? Because everybody on this internet and social media is talking about that kind of agentic coding or even vibe coding, which is not a thing, but they talk about those kind of things. Is it now the best strategy to say, no, that's not a good idea? So what are the actual reasons why it wouldn't be a good idea? The first aspect I basically know of two out there is the major aspect that we share code with companies we don't want to share code with, aka the LLM providers. So companies like OpenAI, but you do that anyway. So most companies have GitHub, Bitbucket, or other tools, have tools like Codana, tools like CodeScene. Those kind of tools already share your code base with similar types of companies anyway. So it's a little bit like a non-thing. It is the same like complaining about data privacy and then using WhatsApp. Those kind of issues, because we do it anyway. I wouldn't see that as a big of an issue. It's your decision, of course, I wouldn't see it like that. Now let's get to the second aspect, which is the AI makes things worse. That is what people say, that is what people think. That is not the reality, because if you use AI or agentic coding, not vibe coding, but agentic coding correctly, then it doesn't harm the quality, because as long as you are, as a developer, as a team in charge of what you're doing, you still decide what you commit to your code base, not the AI. So you can steer into the correct direction. You can still keep quality or even improve quality if you are willing to. But if your teammates and the people inside the team basically use AI in secret, then you don't have that control, because everyone hopefully does have context files, but those context files are not shared. So when you hide your context files, that is actually a big issue, because you don't really have a common idea how to work with code, right? So you may have it on the traditional side, but not on this new side. So the more people in your team start to utilize AI without a common agreement, right, you will definitely face a degradation of your quality in your code base. That is a very bad idea. So what is the best strategy now? If I would be you, I would allow my teams to test and work with AI together, to just try to find the best way how to work with it, but then go with a common solution. For example, agree with your team to only work with Cloud Code, or only work with JetBrains Juni if you are a JetBrains company, something like that. Those kind of things help. How do you structure your context files? How do you actually work with AI? In a stepwise approach where you agree on that, you actually write your tests first. That is a very good opportunity to rethink if TDD or BDD, test-driven development, behavior-driven development, wouldn't be a good thing to start with, because they actually really help in those kind of situations. When you use that, you will definitely speed up the process while you could keep the quality, but you need to really work on that as a team, not as an individual, because individuals tend to be lazy sometimes. And the more people you have who are currently lazy with things, you skip those guidelines. You can fix later, right? Maybe you commit things which you shouldn't have committed. And that is a downward spiral that actually leads at some point in time to the so-called broken window effect, which is not very good in the code base, because code base is liability you need to take care of, otherwise you run into issues you don't want to have. As a conclusion, I would push my teams, push my developers to actually work with agentic tools and try to find a way and work out a way which is actually working together. Because there is basically no scenario I can imagine of where agentic coding isn't a thing in the next years. So no matter what people say about if this is hallucinating, the output is garbage, it is all true. All those things are not ideal right now. But if you use them right, you can already see how the future will look like. And that is the point. So that is a pioneering age still. And you can now make the right steps toward the right things in the future. Or you can just say, no, AI is the thing. You can do that, but it is not wise, let's say, because AI is not per se bad. I'm using AI now since months. So I personally have spent on my personal licenses over $1,000 already on tools like Cloud Code, Juni, Cursor CLI, those kind of things. I was primarily working with Sonnet 4 and GPT-5 now. And when I have done my job right as a software engineer, they work well. In the moment I was tending to vibe too much, they were stopped working well for me. And that is a simple thing to understand. But the point is, when I was actually not lazy and I kept my discipline, I was literally faster, I could work longer, and I was less mentally drained after a day because I could focus on the things which are actually way easier to focus on as a human being, which is high-level thinking, which is thinking about the why, the how, but not the very details of implementation. Coding is fun, of course, right? I love to code. But when you do that in a production environment, when you do that under stress, when you have deadlines, those kind of things, it can easily become a burden, right? Especially for a team. And the worst thing you can do is to have a team which tries to do everything manually, but have a lot of deadlines, or maybe even non-agile workflows, right? And you try to get things done somehow in time. That is still the worst. So AI may, if you do it right, help you to get that a little bit better running, but only if you do that as a team with a clear strategy behind that. You cannot do that by just testing it in a side project and then make a verdict of that and never talk to your team about that. So make that an actual team challenge, a team issue, a team task, and you will see that something valuable will come out of that. But it is an exploratory approach. We need to find out what's working best for us and how we can ensure that what we do is actually working for us and we can still meet our non-functional requirements and qualities, which is extremely important for any business to have in place. So I hope that helped you a little bit to navigate that topic. Let's talk about that a little bit more in the future. Don't be afraid of AI as long as you put enough time into that to really think about these kind of things, how they work, and how you can leverage them to your advantage and not let it work against you, because we tend to be a little bit lazy as human beings. Thanks a lot. See you next time. Bye-bye.